Hi, everyone. Welcome to our panel discussion today. I'm very excited for two things here. One is that we are talking about a group of people that needs to be more appreciated in our vet clinics. I know they are, but I think that extra love will definitely be appreciated. And I'm so glad we're taking that moment to talk about all that work that goes in and everything that is done by our front desk teams. So I'm very excited that, first of all, we're talking about how you can reduce or streamline admin work that happens in a veterinary clinic, and especially using Vetstoria. That's one thing I'm excited about. I think there's three things really. Second being having our awesome panelists that we will get to know in just a bit. And the other is for those that have joined the conversation today for the first time, we thought, we'll open the doors for everyone while we are going through our questions and our discussion today. If anyone has an experience that they would like to share, you can feel free to raise your hand or just let us know in the chat box so you also can be a part of this discussion, because we want to keep things as interactive as possible. But at any point, if anyone has a question that you would like to ask from our panelists, or is there anything if you'd like to raise, feel free to do so at any point. You don't have to wait till the end of the conversation. We have just about 57 minutes to go and a lot that we want to pack in during that hour. So we're excited. Thank you for everyone who joined, and let's get started to talk about how you can streamline admin work in a vet clinic with Vetstoria. A warm welcome to our panelists. Let's get started and introduce everyone. Maybe Claire Hopkins, you can go first.
Hello, thanks for having me on. I work at the Wiley Veterinary Centre in Upminster in Essex, and I'm the rota and diary coordinator. So dealing with Vetstoria is almost a daily thing for me, and godsend. And just thinking about lockdown and things like that, where we had reduced staff and where we are now, it's amazing. So thank you for having me.
Nice. Claire Rogers, Claire R. I think that's how we're going to refer to you as we go the conversation, because we have two Claires. Tell me about you, Claire. How about let us introduce yourself to everybody.
Hi, I'm Claire Rogers. I also work at the Wiley Veterinary Centre as a reception manager. I've been there a couple of months, but previous to that have worked at other vet clinics, and working at Wiley's is the first time that I've used Vetstoria and experienced that package. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Claire. Nicole, would you like to go next?
Yeah, my name's Nicole Aguilera, and I am on the Vetstoria team. Before I came over to Vetstoria, I worked in clinic for 3 years as basically everything from reception all the way up to practice manager, from 24/7 clinics to a general practice as well, and independent and corporate. So I've kind of seen and gotten a good idea of everything within a clinic besides being a veterinarian itself.
Nice. What about you, Trista?
Hi, I'm Trista. I go by Tris. I have spent the last 2 decades working in veterinary medicine. So I've been actually solely in specialty medicine. So I was internal medicine for a really long time, and I was a CSR for years and years, and then a marketing manager there. And then I moved over to a dermatology clinic and worked there as practice manager. And so I was there a little over 3 years, and I loved it. But I'd say streamlining admin work is definitely a passion of mine.
Nice. And last but not least, I'm Mishara. I head product marketing at Vetstoria. I have been with Vetstoria for a couple of years. Before that, I was in technology, but obviously I love and have come to really love this industry, knowing the work that goes behind it, because I bring the pet owner's perspective here. And I think for me personally, there'll definitely be a thing or two that I can learn out of today's webinar. So before we get started, we are talking about how we can reduce admin time. But before we get to that, I thought maybe Claire H and Claire R, because you are a part of, you know, that front desk team at Wiley Vet. Maybe you can take us through what does a typical day look like for the front desk team or the receptionist team or the customer service representative team. Typically, what does that entail? What goes on behind the scenes?
Claire?
Either way, you go first and I'll go after you. It's fine.
Claire, you can go first.
So a typical day would be with our reception area, we have 3 different stations. So we have a receptionist who welcomes and greets the clients and make sure that they sit in the right area and informs them of which vet they're going to see. Then we have a separate phone booth where the receptionists sit and answer the phones. And that's really good because they don't have any distractions. They can just concentrate on that client. And by having the Vetstoria, we can direct them to use that to book appointments or request repeat prescriptions. And then we have another desk where they go to collect repeat prescriptions and collect any medications from seeing the vet or the nurse in consults. So it works quite well because everybody's got their own responsibilities in the clinic on reception.
I'll go from a more rota point of view, or diary, I should say. We've got 2 branches, and on any one day we have between, well, at our hospital, we've got about 7 to 9 consult blocks with vets ranging from 7 in the morning till 10 at night. And then we've got a sort of wellness hub where we see mainly vaccinations and things like that. And we have either 1 or 2 vets consulting for an 8-hour day there. So lots of appointments coming in, lots of phone calls coming in. So yeah, it's busy. We're 24/7, we're a hospital, open weekends. So yeah, it never stops.
Yeah, so from, you know, what we just gathered so far, you're pretty much, you know, the face of the clinic. You're welcoming and you're answering calls and all those things. Out of those tasks that you mentioned, which ones do you feel that takes most of your time?
What the different positions of where the receptionists are? Probably being on the what we call the out desk, where we're dealing with clients that have just come out from seeing the vets or the nurses and dealing with their queries and getting medication for them. So that can take up probably most of the time, and obviously being on the phones as well.
Is that the same for you, Claire Edge?
Yeah, I would agree. And particularly with the phones, I find when we are experiencing busier times, when the volume of calls, well, it's the volume of calls, but also when we haven't got as much availability on the diary, then you know, that takes longer in itself, is finding available appointments. When they want to see a specific vet, that takes time. So yeah, I certainly think the telephone side of things takes a while, and you never know what you're picking up the phone to. So it might be an emergency, or it could just be, you know, fitting in a tricky client who wants to be seen sooner than we can see them. The way we manage our clinic is our hospital, we have very limited vaccination appointments every day. So people who might be local or don't like traveling, the other one isn't far, but you know, they're used to coming to the hospital for vaccinations and that. So if they're calling up, that can take some time looking for available appointments where it's only limited on the diary. So yeah, I think it's just depending on what the phone call is as to how long it might take.
Okay, so this is a question I want to open to everyone. So it's quite obvious that things like phone calls that just happens a lot, and then figuring out availability when you get calls and things like that. So when you have all of those challenges coming in with all that repetitive work, at which point do you decide or hope that you could influence, oh, I wish we could maybe, automate some of these things? Or is that something like you really think about, or where does things like technology really enter the conversation? Maybe, I don't know if Trista, that's something that you'd want to share.
Yes, absolutely. It's funny because it's the phones and the amount of meticulous time it takes to book a lot of these appointments that prompted me to start looking at different solutions. And so I knew I needed to gather data. Like the more data I could take to our practice owner, the more likely it was that, hey, maybe we can get some automated solutions and save some time. And so I started tracking our phone calls. So I went into our phone records, tracked phone call records to see how many calls we were even receiving per day and who was taking care of them. Of those, how many went straight to voicemail because our phone lines were so busy, how many were appointments, how long did it take to book the appointments. And so I just gathered a lot of data, and it was pretty mind-blowing to see just how much time our front staff spent on the phones in just a 2-doctor clinic even. And each appointment, there's so much that go into those appointments. You have to, in our case, we collected deposits. So we're collecting all our patient client information. We're sending over deposits. We're sending them record requests and forms that we wanted filled out prior to them coming in. And so it could take a good 20 minutes sometimes to actually start to finish book a phone call. And so in the time that we had receptionists making those calls or on those calls for so long, the phones are still ringing off the hook, and then those ones are going to voicemails. And so then you play phone tag and you chase clients for a day or two to get them scheduled. So having data to kind of show our practice owner at the time was hugely helpful in working toward a more streamlined solution.
20 minutes for a phone call, that sounds pretty crazy. And I know sometimes it might not be as much, but even if you have 2 of those calls a day, that's that's time that you could treat at least a couple of animals. Nicole, I know for you, as your experience as a practice manager, I remember in an earlier conversation, you mentioned technology wasn't even something that was considered while you were in a practice manager role. Can you walk us through some of the challenges that you faced?
Yeah, so similar to what Tris was just saying, we started off with 10 phone lines, and it was just pick up, put on hold, pick up, put on hold, pick up, put on hold. After 5 minutes, it would ring them back into our queue. So it was they were coming right off of hold before we were even done talking to the last person that we were talking to. So then we tried switching, different phone systems, trying out different methods of phone lines and a phone triaging where they would say, press 1 for prescription refill, press 2 for appointments. But a lot of this stuff was still just coming right back to us. And then we even had a live view of how many people were on hold, how many calls were coming in per hour, those type of things. And we were getting I think 50 to 60 calls an hour. So it just what off of Tris was saying, most of our calls were taking 5 to 10 minutes just to book an appointment. And then during that time, we'd get another 10 calls coming in. So we were trying to play with the phone system itself, and it just wasn't working for us. And I really do like the idea of, gathering all that intel before going to the practice owner, because our practice owner, he was just stubborn. So he didn't really want to add too much without making it hard on him. And I think that's what you were saying, there's a big gap of appreciation for the front desk that are doing scans, checking people in, checking people out, doing the calls all at the same time. And I think that's where in the past couple of years, a lot of people are starting to burn out because they feel like they're not being heard or seen. So that's where I feel at that point, if you're having to train people, every month just because you're having a new person step into that position, I think that's where you need to kind of take a step back and maybe even try it out for a day. Maybe you act as a receptionist and see how much they're going through. And then see where you think you can help them out and streamline some things.
That is such a good point, Nicole, and I'm glad you brought up the point about burnout as well, which I think is something that we definitely need to address during this session as we go along. But I know at Violet, for example, where Claire H and Claire R are from, obviously we've been using Vetstoria for a while. I'm interested in knowing, how did that come about, and what was there any role played by you at all in the implementation of it, or how did the adoption of Vetstoria at your clinic, walk us through that?
Well, I think we are quite lucky in that two directors that joined, we're an independent practice, and we had two directors join probably about 5 or so years ago, and they had come from a corporate, so had been more exposed to the things that were available on a larger scale. And just the two of them, we are so fortunate that they are really the pioneers of technology in our practice, and quite quickly realized how busy the reception team were, and were straight on it to see how they could make things easier, alleviate the amount of pressure on the team. Like Tris was saying, we've and Nicole, large volumes of calls coming in to 2, if we're lucky, 3 receptionists a day that are available to take those calls. We have 5 on at any one point, but just they weren't getting through the volume quick enough, and we as a practice strive for sort of 5-star service, and so our directors were quite swift in implementing what they did, and we're really fortunate.
Nice. Anything you wanted to add to that, Claire Rogers? We're saying your full name, but
having Vetstoria, I obviously had no experience before I joined Wiley's, and it's just brilliant because the phone calls where we can go, oh, you can book that online, and we can just direct the client, and then that's another phone call that we can. The next phone call could be an emergency, or someone who really does need to actually speak to a receptionist, and we need to spend time with that client on the phone. So that's one of the great bonuses of having the Vetstoria in practice. I found just the last couple of weeks of joining Wiley's.
Nice. That's so great to hear. Yeah. There's a question I want to open up to everyone, and even anyone who's joined our webinar right now. If you're using Vetstoria, I'd like to know, especially at Vet as well, if there are any, of course, other than online booking, where if any website is using Vetstoria, you can go onto the website, pet owners can book their appointments, it's integrated the PIMs and all of that in real time. So all those appointments get scheduled in real time, and you're actually relieving your team from answering the phone. But other than online booking, or even the customization that comes with it, are there any specific features that stand out to you that you in particular find helpful? You can start with Claire Edge again. I mean, go around if you like.
I don't know. For me, my favorite stuff that they do is Victoria does. In particular, we have special clinics for pain clinics, which are only 3 of our 25 strong vet team. So we are able to set it up exactly that the appointment, it gets the 3 correct vets at their next availability. The correct amount of time gets booked in. As soon as they make that booking online, they get sent an email running through what's going to happen on the day, what they need to do as an owner to prepare, to bring with them, things like that. And then it attaches a questionnaire also. So that, again, is just taking so much time out of a receptionist day, going through all of that, having to remember all the things that you need to say. And it just does it every time, knowing that it's done as it should be. And as soon as you see that it's booked through Vetstoria, you know that that owner has received everything they needed to receive, and you just got the peace of mind without having to worry about it or make follow-up calls to double check it's all happened. A little bit the same with repeat medication being booked online. It's straight into the diary that way. So it's exactly what the owner has said. They book a sort of a click and collect slot. That's the way we've got it set up. So we know that the time frame is enough time for our dispensary to check their records, making sure everything's okay, make sure that we've got everything in stock. And it, we can go back and sort it out if needs be, but it just keeps ticking along without any sort of actual human interaction for those types of things that are just day-to-day things that take time.
I actually have a follow-up question on that. You brought up an interesting point about human interaction, and I know that's something that sometimes others would bring up, when you make things so automated, like what would really happen to the human interaction part? How do pet owners respond to it? Do they feel like there's something missing, or do they respond to it better?
No, I think for the day-to-day things like repeat medication, owners are just as busy as we are. So for them to be able to do it first thing in the morning when they wake up, when they're thinking about it, or, if they wake up in the middle of the night and think, oh God, I need more medication, they can just do that when they're thinking about it rather than having to wait for us. So there's definitely a need for human interaction when it comes to emergencies, or I think even with new setting up new clients or patients, it's nice to be able to talk things through. But certainly for the day-to-day things that owners just want to get it done and know that it's done. So everything has its place, I think.
Nicole, are there any features that that you think that are very specifically helpful to the front desk team that Vetstoria offers?
Yeah, definitely. The funny thing is that when I came onto Vetstoria, I was like, oh my gosh, why did we not hear about this? Because when I worked at the corporate clinic side of things, we had an online booking, but it was basically any available slot you could just book things in. And we were 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And at 5:30, we got somebody that said, neuter my dog. And the great thing with Vetstoria is, just what Claire was pointing out was that we have so many customizations to make sure that those type of things don't get booked at the wrong hours and wrong times. And on top of that, it's not like they can click on a certain appointment that they know, okay, wellness appointments, they'll see them until 6 p.m. and then start putting, hey, I'd like for you to neuter my dog, because that signals to us on Vetstoria the smart triaging that says, actually, this is the wrong appointment type. You need to go back and fix that. So the smart triaging is just like my favorite thing. And when I go and talk to people about it, that's like my number one thing that I always mention, because I had experience myself with like issues with that with online booking that just weren't customizable enough to actually triage certain appointments for us. So I think the smart triaging is just chef's kiss.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Especially, from a pet owner's point of view, I would really like to label myself as that pet owner who's very obsessed with their like dogs. I think even for me, if I had that convenience, if things were easy for me to access, that's something that I would appreciate as well, from a pet owner perspective. I think we have someone who just shouted us out on the chat. We have, I think, Shannon would like to share her experience. I think I'm wondering if Shannon is able to maybe turn on a mic. I think that's something we'll have to enable for her. Hi, Shannon.
Hello, everybody.
Hi. Nice to have you on the chat. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Shannon.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, in a nutshell, much like some of the panelists already, I've been in the veterinary industry for a couple of decades or more. And I've had a number of roles. I'm an RVT by trade, so veterinary nurse by trade. And then I actually worked in pharmaceutical sales, management, operations, HR, you name it. So I've kind of done the whole gamut. And worked in companion animal private practice, and I've worked with large animal medicine as well, and specialty in ER. So yeah, all over the place. But I love this conversation, and it's, for me, I'm always looking at new and exciting things that are out there to make workload easier. And one of the things, like everything that we've been talking about so far is something that's near and dear to my heart, and workflow and process. And I've worked in a super busy ER specialty practice where, literally, I think we had probably close to 8 to 10 reception on a day. We had back office reception, taking all of those phone calls so that people could do the front office. I've seen busy practices that are 2-doctor practices that are taking 100 phone calls a day, that kind of thing. And I did the quick math just on, what we had said at the very beginning about it takes approximately 20 minutes to book one of these consults or doctor appointments with our clients, that kind of thing. In an 8-hour day, that's only 24 calls. And when you think about it, how many hospitals get 24 calls a day? I'm like, no, they're getting a lot more than 24 calls a day, right? So the services that Vetstoria provides are exceptional. One of the things I wanted to just kind of chat with the group about, and also get some real life stories from the team on, is the integration of new technology and this program into the hospital. Because obviously vet med, we can be very traditional, and we like to have those client interactions from the front office team. That's one of our favorite things to do. And there's also a lot of concern sometimes with the front office team saying, the integration of this new technology, like, what does this mean for me and my job? So, because obviously it's going to decrease the amount of phone calls. Does it decrease the amount of need for the reception team, that kind of thing? And I have my own experience, but I would also love to hear from the panelists as well to share that, because it's something that I think that people need to realize it's not as spooky as one might think. So would love to hear from everybody.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That's an excellent conversation starter, Shannon. Trista, I don't know if you wanted to kind of kick that off, and then maybe the rest of the team can take it on.
I can talk a little bit about it. I think just alleviating some fears about it. And my experience is not as expanded as some of the others, so I don't want to take up too much time. But there is definitely that fear with the team that, oh my goodness, I really want that personal touch with clients. And I think what's happening right now is we are all just so busy that it's not always possible. And so you kind of have to balance it out, right? Like, there are some clients that do want the personal touch. There's definitely a generation that typically prefers that. And there's also a generation that does not want to talk on the phone. They want nothing to do with the phone. And so it's kind of finding a balance and talking to your team about that. And we definitely had certain clients that we just made notes in our PIMs, like, we want this client to be personal touch, phone call, that is their preference. And so I think you can work some preferences into it. I think that depends on the size of your practice and how busy you guys are. But there's still a way to do that. I don't think Vetstoria takes away that personal touch. I think it's more balancing it out with those who want that online access and those who still want as much as they can to have that in-person relationship with you.
Nicole, Claire, Edge, or R, anything you'd wanted to add?
I don't think that it takes away from what the actual on-the-ground reception team do. It gives them an opportunity to do their job better, actually. Although we've got a dedicated phone booth answering calls, even though we utilize Vetstoria quite a lot, I would say the day-to-day running of the business is much the same, except that it takes a lot of pressure off. That, things are ticking along online as much as they are in person. Part of my role is to monitor everything that comes in from the online booking. So if any clients type anything in their booking note that we need to action, I flag it up with the reception team, who then call that owner, and so they are still getting that interaction if that's what they want, or if they just want to make a quick and easy booking, they can do that. We have the same amount of team as we do even prior to Vetstoria, and I think it was after COVID, where some practices in the area closed down, pet ownership increased significantly. We couldn't actually cope with the demand on the team that we had. We couldn't fit any more team within, our actual building. So Vetstoria just alleviates rather than threatens our team.
Thanks. I really like that, Claire. I also think, like, from a pet owner perspective, like Trista said, I think the new way of personal touch is making sure that there are different ways that I can access the care that I need for my pet. So if I find it easy to quickly look at my mobile, and of course, like just said, I hate being on the phone. I answer when my mom calls. That's pretty much it. Everyone else, I let it be a text. So if it's easy for me to get on my mobile, quickly book that appointment, quickly, chat with the team, which is, something Petless, for example, helps. So that's something, giving me that access to pet care is what I like. And if the clinic that I go to, if they can give that, great. They've already, set a great impression that, things are going to be easy. And once I get there, when I meet the awesome team and give that attention that I'm looking for, which is pretty much key, I think there you're covering all the basis of a really good interaction as far as client care is concerned. So thank you for bringing up that, Shannon. Thank you for joining the conversation.
No, I think that's great. And I mean, Claire and Trista, you all hit it on nail on the head, because you said it too. There's the access to care and the owner compliance are things that need to be considerations, right? Like there are so many different features that you can use and utilize, and you're grasping like a wide range of people when you're offering these types of services. I'm the type of person, like I grew up in the generation where we picked up the phone and called. Yeah. Okay, but I would rather not do that. And it's not because I don't want to talk on the phone with someone, it's because I'm really busy. And so if I'm going to book an appointment, it's going to be at 11 o'clock at night. Yep. And so, being able to go online and do that is phenomenal. The second piece though, with the team, it's something that I found it's helping them understand the redirection of their job. And it's a change, right? So it's not something that we need to, fear or anything like that, but some people do need help with any type of change like that in the practice. And so it's just understanding what their fear is and talking about it, and sometimes just acknowledging it and letting them know that, at all of those amazing things that you love to do with your job, you are still going to be able to do those, only you're going to be able to do it 10 times better because you're not going to be like this while there's a client in front of you. And that's the most important thing, is like those clients that are in front of you should be the ones that are getting your attention. And the phone, even though it's important, there are other ways to manage that. And when you explain it and direct it in that way, people are always worried that they're not going to have a job or something like that because technology is going to take over. And it's not. It's just meant to complement what you're already doing. So good on everybody. Great conversation. Love this.
Thanks, Shannon. Thank you so much. I actually have like the next question. Maybe Trista, perhaps you can take this on. We'll have the rest of the team join in. So just like Shannon brought up, yes, you want to introduce tech, and we have other attendees today that are thinking, yes, technology might make my day easy. And if we're on that path, how can you convince your immediate supervisor or your practice manager or the owner of a clinic? How can you influence to bake technology into your day-to-day?
That's such a good question, because that's how you get started with all of this. Yeah. And I think, like I talked a little bit about earlier, data was a big one for me, but I also knew my practice manager, or I was the practice manager, but my practice owner, very, very supportive, but wanted data to back up the claims. And so I think that's very valid. And also, I think leveraging the team to have a team meeting and talk about the concerns that you're having and why it's so difficult to get these appointments scheduled. It's hard to keep up. We're talking about burnout. What can we do to prevent burnout and help as many clients as we can? And incorporating the practice owner in that conversation. And I think the more people that are included and willing to speak up, the better. And it can also be helpful too to put some more numbers to it, maybe not just data, but if you're freeing up some of your phone time, not only can you be better at building relationships with the people that are in the clinic, but what else can you be doing to be generating revenue? When you've got more time that's free, you can put that time somewhere else and be generating somewhere else. So I think if you can come up with what you can do with the extra time that you're going to save, how you'll continue to build your client relationships and take that all that information to the practice owner with the support of your team. Maybe I'm a huge fan of writing proposals and then as a team going to your owner with it. But whatever data you can find, benefits, value is going to be hugely helpful.
Nice. Claire H, Claire R, how would you sort of start the conversation for a clinic that does not have, for example, a tool like Vetstoria? How would you influence your supervisors and other team members?
Probably look at the call volumes, of how many calls are coming into the clinic and how much time it can save the receptionists by having the Vetstoria. Yeah, looking at figures, it's all figures and monetary with bosses at the end of the day. They want to know the facts and figures, don't they, before they make decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think numbers definitely play a huge role. Claire Edge, do you feel the same, or would you add anything else into the mix?
No, I totally agree with both of them. The only thing otherwise is team morale. We got to a point where the team basically just felt like, you know, they weren't getting job satisfaction because they weren't able to do it, you know, to the standard that they like to. So by, you know, yeah, so it's just talking to the team and, you know, seeing how they feel, and if they feel that the volume of calls and work expected from them is in keeping with the hours, the, you know, the ability, you know, not ability, but, you know, the amount that they can give back. And I think when it tips the other way, then, you know, if bosses aren't going to look at ways that they can help, then, you know, you get people starting to leave, or, you know, looking for other places where they are better supported.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So let's assume now, for those maybe who are attending, they've sort of figured out, okay, we're going to have this meeting, we're going to show these numbers and figure out, you know what, we'd love to have a tool like Vetstoria, we'd love to have a tool like Headless, for example. But for the rest of the team that's not really on board, who might have concerns about, you know, starting with new tech, how would you then navigate the question? Nicole, I don't know if you'd want to start, especially looking at your previous experience as like a practice manager. How would you influence the rest of the team to sort of be on board with new tech? And then after Nicole, maybe someone else can take on.
Yeah, so the whole idea of a team meeting, I know that all of these products, they have product tours where you can sit on, and most of them will actually send you that recording back. So if you have specific concerns for your team, where, you know, hey, like my team's going to be concerned about how customizable it can be, how it's going to affect their day to day, and you go on that product tour, and then because obviously you don't want to pull everybody off of their jobs, you know, early morning or whatnot. And I know some clinics, they have set times during the week to actually have training. So you could bring that to your training and say, you know, this is something that I'm thinking about possibly implementing. Please let me know what your concerns are now, and let's watch the video, and then hold off for questions until later. And then always have a follow-up with like whoever it was that presented the idea with you first. So that way, if there's any questions that weren't answered on the product tour itself, you can answer them there and then bring that back to the team. And then also, I also wanted to touch base on the part with the practice owner. I don't think we've discussed it yet, but we do have the payments option too. So I know when I was in clinic, we would get 5 no-shows a day. So, you know, just turning on that feature too, it can help save time for not only the slots that you guys are booked up that somebody doesn't show up and doesn't get you that revenue, but I know when we turn on that payment feature, it drops dramatically. You know, it drops between 80 to 100% of no-shows, and that's just another added revenue that since COVID happened, there's a lot of people that are shopping around and they book an appointment with you, but then they find a sooner appointment down the street. So they'll just go to that doctor and not even call you. So I think that's another big takeaway you can bring to practice owners and say, you know, we have this many no-shows a day. And if you're considering a $200 average US dollars, 5 no-shows a day, that's $1,000 right there that you can just turn that into revenue.
That's a good shout. Payments feature can really impact no-shows. And I think that kind of stat really helps to get everybody on board on why, you know, a tool like Vetstoria, for example, is very helpful. There's an interesting question in the Q&A. I think maybe Claire Edge or Clara can help with this one. Have you had a challenge within the clinic that you have leaned on the Vetstoria team expertise that has assisted you?
A challenge in I don't know in what sort of respect. I mean, in terms of technical support, the Vetstoria team are amazing in setting up different campaigns. We have a behaviorist that comes in every other Tuesday who isn't a Wiley's employee, but she's offering her services to offer these free consults, you know, in the way of hoping to generate business for her, and we work alongside her. And so we've just set her up as a campaign. So if anyone wants to book in with her, it's just done by a QR code or via a link that we've put up on our Facebook. And little things like that I don't do that regularly. I know that I can just speak to the team at Vetstoria who literally help me through it, and I'll know what to do next time. So I don't know if that answers the questions in terms of the challenges. When we started using Vetstoria, we started slowly, and we've just kind of grown with it. You know, we started with just a few blocks of the diary that we made available to see how we went. You know, so we just grew with it, and it almost just seems like second nature now. And so much happens behind the scenes that our team don't even realize, you know, what's happening online, because it is just so customizable, automated, and yeah, it's just brilliant, really.
Yeah, I think that's sort of what the question is getting at as well, Claire. So I think you did a good job answering that. Kind of want to move a little bit onto you know, the front desk team and the experiences that they generally go through. Obviously, technology really helps you know, take away that pressure, that, you know, reduce a lot of that repetitive and manual work. But for those clinics that may not really have that sort of help, I think there was this very interesting survey that was published by the CEO of Galaxy Vets, Dr. Ivan Zak, where he found out from a survey where CSR teams, they reported the lowest professional fulfillment, and it hasn't increased over the years. And I sort of get that. If they don't have technology and they're doing all this repetitive work, it's sort of easy to feel like, oh, wow, this is what I'm doing. But I think having technology obviously helps you learn something new, make time for more things that's important. But how can we push for more career advancement, and then make sure that the value of the front desk teams are really shown in the clinics? How can we push for that? Maybe Tristan, you'd want to start? You're on
myself off mute. Okay, sorry about that. I always do that. You know, I feel like just being a receptionist or a CSR, you're already showing your value, because it is such a tough job. And what y'all do is amazing. And you know, you are putting out fires every day, and just working so hard and doing so many different things at once. And so I feel like it's pretty easy to show your value. I would say I also think it's important for practice managers, owners, to make sure that they are appreciating that value too. Validation and praise go such a long way. And when you are sometimes as a receptionist, you know, you can have days where you just feel like it's one thing after another and nothing calms down, and it's just the phones are busy and problems are coming up and it gets stressful. And so sometimes just having management acknowledge that and say, I hear you, I understand this is hard, and provide that validation, and then provide praise too. Like, you're doing an amazing job. I don't know how you are able to do this and do it so efficiently. So I think those are definitely areas where the practice management side, the team leads can kind of grow their reception team. And I think the more valued you feel, the more you're able to really shine. I had a coworker who used to refer to the front desk as Pride Rock, like from The Lion King. And she's like, this is Pride Rock. You are in charge. This is your domain. The clients are here. You take care of the clients. You take care of the team. This is yours. What do you want to make it? And so sometimes you can show your value in just how you're embracing that and how it's manifesting in the way that you're dealing with your clients and you're dealing with your team members. Have pride in that.
I love that, Trista. I think recognizing and showing appreciation, like you said, for the job that they're doing, that really goes a long way. I want to turn this to Nicole, since we're kind of talking about making sure that the front desk team or the CSR team is appreciated. From your experience as a practice manager, and if we, have practice managers listening in, what kind of advice would you share to ensure that the CSR and the front desk team is more appreciated?
Yeah, so everybody knows in the vet industry, it's very hard to take breaks. Lunch breaks, regular breaks. And I know that when I would get finished with my management work, I would always go up front and just check in with my team and say, hey, do you need 5-10 minute breathers? What do you need from me? Because like Trish said, sometimes it's a day that's just nonstop. And they're sometimes afraid to ask for help. So it's always nice, even if you can't, even if they haven't come to you, just hey, do you need 5-10 minutes, or have you taken your lunch today? I know some teams are big enough where they can have a revolving schedule for lunches and stuff, but some teams that are smaller, they might not have that time. And I think part of it too is I did have a team that was 3 receptionists in the front, 3 receptionists in the back, and we would from time to time have lunches, but we wouldn't give them time to actually eat those lunches. So I think that that's a big thing is, if you're going to have some kind of appreciation, let them enjoy it. So the days that I would have lunch and stuff, I would just make sure hey, food is fresh now. I don't mind heating up my food, but if you need that fresh food now, I would go take your break. I'll step in for you. So I think that that's a big part as a manager, is making sure that they're getting their times to breathe and not have to be at the front desk. I know that is their job, being at the front desk, but the technicians are in the back, they're joking around. They don't have to be necessarily 100% professional all the time, because they have that time away from the clients, and the front desk is always client facing. So they have to be professional 100% of the time that they're up there. So even giving them that time to step back and just be themselves and just kind of like a weight off their shoulders, that's a really nice step for them.
I really like that. And I want to sort of flip that question for Claire H and Claire R. What are the things that you wish that your immediate supervisors or your bosses knew about your job, and what would you like to change? I know Value Vet is pretty great, but in general, maybe this is like a moment we speak on behalf of those that need that.
I think they appreciate at Wiley's how busy the reception or front of house team are, and how we're always juggling balls in the air or firefighting sometimes, dealing with a lot of problems or clients that are coming in. But I think we're quite lucky that they appreciate how busy we have to work, and we deliver a high standard of customer care to our clients. So I think they know how hard we all work out the front.
How about you, Claire H? If you had to be hypothetical.
Sorry, you broke up slightly. I was just at our practice, our customer services manager, she will come out and sit in the phone booth from time to time. And I think it helps that when she sees how, likewise Claire goes to the management meetings, they can report that back, because it's very easy to say, you know, why aren't they doing this thing, or adding more to receptionists are expected to be given, to be doing. But when we have members who are doing it day to day and then go to the management meeting, it's nice that the reception team have someone who's got their back, who can say, well, actually, that's not going to work too well, or, you know, for different reasons. And just appreciation. What's really nice that I'm seeing is when clients think, you know, we always share this the team, and reception never get in, and they always mention the little things, how reception always fuss over their dog, give them a little treat, you know, they were anxious, or sadly end of life related thing, and reception always get a mention, and a heartfelt mention at that. It's not always just vets and nurses, and it just shows that what the reception do is so important and appreciated, because, you know, it's pet owners' babies that they're bringing in, and if we can make that easier experience for them, that memory goes a long way.
Absolutely. And I think from what we heard today about, you know, making sure that the front desk team is appreciated, making sure that they are literally recognized for the job that they're doing, giving them those shout outs, like Nicole said, making sure that, you know, you give them their breaks, because things like burnout, for example, sometimes it's because you're overworking yourself and, you know, you really don't have a second. And I think giving them that space is so important. And like you brought up, Claire, I think it's so good that, and I hope that everyone operates like Wiley Vet does, that you know, give, you know, have that listening ear to everyone in the team. That is so important. And it does, because as long as your team is happy, I think that's when they are in a state of mind to, you know, even just do their job really well. Because we know that they're dedicated as is, and if you have to constantly just be overworked, it's going to get really tough. So I think what you mentioned really helps, even reduce things like burnout, for example. And you mentioned a little bit about pet owners as well, Claret, in the last bit of that comment there. What are the things that maybe everyone can take a step at it? What is maybe one thing that you wish pet owners knew about the front desk team? And if you could just dispense any advice that will help with the next visit, what would that be?
Well, it's pretty much what we've touched on already, in that they don't realize the volume of calls that we, you know, how many we need to get through, how long each one takes, and it's just been a little bit more, you know, on the receiving, you know, we
can hear you, Claire.
Oh, sorry, I dropped out for a second. I didn't hear that last bit.
Oh, I thought you heard me.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Can everyone else hear me?
Yeah, so my reception's just dropping. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. Maybe we'll come back to you in just a bit, Claire. Maybe Trista, do you want to go next? Maybe if there was anything, at least from your like previous experience and advice that you wanted to share with the pet owner, what would that be?
Yeah. And this does not encapsulate all pet owners, because I feel like they are wonderful. But there is sometimes a stigma that's associated with being a receptionist. And I had a client several years ago that basically I gave her a response, and the response to me was, well, you're just a receptionist. Can I ask a doctor? And so I guess what I would say is, we're smart. We know our stuff. We're in this profession because we love animals, we love people, and we're smart. We train, we want to help, we work so hard to do what we do. And I can't tell you how many of us, even as practice managers, are sitting at a front desk and covering for our team and taking care of them. And I've seen doctors do it too. So just erasing the stigma a little bit. Like, we are here and we're awesome. We're doing a good job. So
Yeah.
I guess that's a big one for me.
Thanks, Trista. What about you, Claire? Is there any advice that you wish you could share with a pet owner, and what would that be?
I think I would agree with what Trista says, that, you know, we are smart, and sometimes clients think that we don't, you know, we're being unhelpful when, you know, we help as much as we can. So yeah, sort of agree with what Trista's saying.
Thanks, Gail. What about you, Nicole?
I think pretty much along the lines that you guys have already touched base on, but also on the fact that some pet owners, they try to push you to give them information that they know or they don't know. They might not know that receptionists can't give medical advice over the phone. So I've come across it multiple times where, you know, they're on there saying, well, should I be giving my pet this, or should I be giving my pet this? And it's, you know, it's not something that's up to us. And a lot of times they feel they can just kind of go over the fact that they have to come in. So some things they have to get seen, and it can get frustrating when they get mad at you for not giving them that information, when it's illegal for the receptionist to give that type of information over the phone. So I wish that pet owners kind of took that into understanding too, that if you go to your doctor's office, you're not going to be asking the receptionist like, hey, what is this mole that I've never gotten biopsied? What is that? What is that? Do I take this? Do I take that? Clearly you have to do some sort of steps to figure out what it is, and the receptionist isn't going to be the one to help you out there, but they can be a bridge to somebody that can help you. So just being nice and understanding about what the position all entails.
Nice, thanks, Nicole. I think, Claire, actually, I think the connection is better now. And I think the last bit I heard you shared was about phone call volume. I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to add to that.
No, it was just about the volume and how long these things take. And sometimes when they're expecting a response from us, but we need to be able to speak to a veterinary surgeon before we're able to give that response, a little bit like what Nicole was saying. It's just that they don't realize how busy our clinical team are. Yeah, it's just, we are busy from the minute we get in to the minute we go home. And I think sometimes they are just thinking about their pet, their problem, and sometimes it's not quick enough for them.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, as a pet owner, I completely agree with that. And I think that's also pretty great. That's why like a platform like Vetstoria would have these things like disclaimers, for example, that will give some instruction beforehand. I think that's something I've seen even on the WileyVet website. It's very clearly outlined as to what, you know, pet owners should know before they book an appointment, or what they should expect when they're booking specific type of appointments. There's appointment screening, so that just in case, you know, it's on the phone call, you're trying to triage, but you know, if you're doing it online, you'd know, okay, this is an emergency. This is sort of the action that you take. So a tool like Vetstoria would help you, you know, would help the pet owner figure that out as well, which helps the front desk team incidentally as well. I think we're just about 1 minute to go. So actually we're at the top of the hour. So before we wrap up, maybe we can have everyone chime in as well. So for those who are listening in, if they are considering technology for their clinics, how do you think, maybe everyone can share why a tool like that, and how would a tool like Vetstoria, for example, help their clinic simply, if you had to share, and if everyone is, just in case they're a bit confused about it, how would you sort of share that it's a good idea to go ahead and get one? Not sure if Nicole, you want to start?
Yeah, so as we've mentioned, you know, it just saves a lot of time, not only for front desk, but if you're having to help out as a manager, it saves you time as well. I know one of our clinics here in the US saves up to like 40 hours a month. So just consider that, you know, 40 hours a month, that could be everybody's lunches right there for the month. So I would consider the amount of time it saves for you and your front desk to be able to do other things that they want to get back to, and the things that they love, you know, helping out the pets.
Nice. Thanks, Nicole. Claire Edge, anything you'd want to share for anyone that's listening in?
I just think the way that the world is going, we do so much online, and almost if you don't move with the times, you kind of wonder why you wouldn't take advantage of an amazing tool that's going to make every day easier.
Nice. Well said. Trista?
I think for me, something I would like to just reiterate is how customizable like Vetstoria is, because my practice manager brain, when I first heard about it, was like, oh my goodness, this is not going to work for our complicated schedule. There's too many nuances. And then when I actually, like the first time I saw it, I was like, this is incredible. Like you can customize everything. And Nicole talked a little bit earlier about smart triage. Like there's a way to set it up so that words are triggered to actually prompt you to call instead of book online. And the amount of customization is so helpful. And it can also help with like fear-free, if you have a fear-free practice and you want to involve forms and, you know, different elements of fear-free. So customizable, does a lot, super, super helpful.
Excellent point, Trista. Claire R., do you want to share any final thoughts?
Just the same as everybody else, really. Especially from a customer perspective, it, you know, makes it user friendly and saves them time as well. Yeah, that's what everybody else has said.
Thanks, Claire. Actually, thank you, everyone, for joining the conversation today. Claire Hopkins, Trista Parsons, Nicole, and Claire, and also a shout out to my teammate Asta, who's in the background making sure everything is running for the conversation today. And of course, a bigger shout out to everyone who joined today's webinar. Like we said, I'm so glad that we took this time to appreciate our front desk teams, our CSR teams, our reception teams, because for a job they're doing always so well, but we just don't take enough time to appreciate it. So I'm glad we discussed those challenges, talked about solutions that are right. We figured out, you know, things that we can do to encourage them, to uplift them, making sure that they are well supported. So ladies, thank you for taking the time. And thank you for everyone who joined today. Lots more helpful resources from Vetstoria's team will be shared with you if you are a practice manager, or even if you are from the front desk team. If you want help from technology to help with your work, let us know how we can help. But yeah, make sure that you are in touch with us as we share helpful information as we go along in this journey. Thanks once again, ladies. This was fun. And thank you for taking a chunk of your day to join this conversation with me.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.